So what if the deepest, most fundamental truths of our universe, the ones physicists are uncovering in these massive, complex labs, what if they were already known, for thousands of years, by mystics meditating in the mountains of the East? It sounds wild, right? Almost like science fiction. But it's this incredible parallel that we're going to dive into today, drawn from Fritjof Capra's amazing book, The Tao of Physics. All right, let's get into it.
Our story here, it doesn't start with ancient wisdom. It starts with a very modern crisis. See, in the early 20th century, physicists started looking into the subatomic world, and what they found, it wasn't just weird. It was completely logically impossible. The very foundations of what they thought they knew about reality were just crumbling, which led one of the pioneers of this new science to ask this very question pretty much in sheer desperation.
And you can just feel the emotion in Heisenberg's words here. This wasn't some calm academic puzzle they were trying to solve. This was a genuine shock to the system. I mean, these brilliant minds, the founders of quantum mechanics, were staring into a reality so bizarre, so absurd, it literally brought them to the edge of despair. The world they had built their lives and careers on was just dissolving right in front of them.
Yeah, this profound confusion, it created what we can really only call a crisis of certainty. Everything classical physics had taught them, everything that just felt like solid common sense, was being flipped completely on its head.
So what was so absurd? Well, the main culprit was this bizarre idea called wave-particle duality. See, experiments were showing that light and even tiny bits of matter could act like a solid little object, like a tiny baseball in one experiment, but then in the very next, it would act like a spread-out ripple in a pond. It wasn't one or the other, it was somehow impossibly both at the same time. I mean, our everyday logic just can't handle that. The language we have doesn't even work. It was a true paradox.
And this wasn't just a problem for a few people. As this quote from Einstein just so perfectly puts it, even the greatest minds on the planet felt like the very ground of reality had just vanished beneath their feet. Now, to really understand why this was such a seismic shock, we've got to take a quick look at the world they thought they knew. For hundreds of years, Western science and philosophy had been building this very specific picture of the universe. Basically, a giant predictable machine.
And you can see on this timeline, it was a long journey. It actually started way back with the early Greeks, who saw matter as alive and unified, kind of like the Eastern mystics, funnily enough. But over centuries, a split started to happen. Spirit got separated from matter. And this really came to a head with Descartes, who drew this hard line between the mind and matter, and then Newton, who basically gave us the final picture, a giant clockwork universe.
So here's the key takeaway. The worldview that came to dominate everything was one of fragmentation. The world wasn't seen as a living, breathing organism anymore. It was a collection of separate, dead parts ticking along. And scientists, well, they were just objective observers, standing outside the machine, studying it. And according to Capra, this fragmented view didn't just stay in the lab. Oh no, it shaped our entire civilization. It's why we tend to feel like these little isolated egos trapped inside our bodies. It's why we feel separate from each other and totally separate from nature, which, has led to some pretty deep social and ecological problems.
Okay, but this fragmented, mechanical view of the world, it's not the only game in town. For thousands of years, Eastern traditions have been cultivating a radically, completely different vision of reality.
And this chart just lays out the difference so beautifully. While the West was seeing a fragmented machine made of separate little objects, the East was seeing a unified, dynamic whole. In this organic view, there are no things really. There are just interrelated events, all part of this constant cosmic flow. And spirit and matter, they aren't two different things, they're one and the same.
You see, the highest goal in traditions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism is to directly experience this unity, is to transcend the illusion of being an isolated self and to realize deep in your bones that you're part of one single, indivisible reality.
This Buddhist teaching just nails it. The idea that we're all separate little beings, that's considered an illusion. It's a product of a disturbed or agitated mind. The whole point of enlightenment is to quiet the mind enough to see past that illusion and perceive the fundamental unity of everything.
So we've got these two completely different paths, right? The physicist, studying the external world with experiments, and the mystic, studying the internal world with meditation. And this is where things get truly wild. This is where these two paths unexpectedly collide.
The author of our source material, the physicist Fritjof Capra,
had this incredibly profound personal experience. He's sitting by the ocean one day, and his rational, scientific understanding of atoms and cosmic rays, it suddenly transforms into this direct, visceral vision. He saw everything, including himself, as part of this single, vibrant, cosmic dance of energy, an image pulled straight from Hindu mysticism.
And Capra wasn't alone in seeing this, not by a long shot. J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, he saw that these bizarre new lessons from atomic physics were actually, in his words, an encouragement and a refinement of old wisdom that you could find in the East.
And then you have Niels Bohr, another absolute giant of quantum theory, saying the exact same thing. He said, to even begin to make sense of the new physics, we have to turn to the kinds of problems that thinkers like the Buddha and Lao Tzu were wrestling with centuries ago.
So here it is. This is the crucial point. When physicists tried to describe the subatomic world, this realm of pure energy where particles pop in and out of existence, where everything is interconnected and in constant motion, the language they were forced to use started to sound indistinguishable from the language mystics used to describe ultimate reality.
This incredible convergence, it leaves us with a really profound question about the very nature of what we're doing when we do science. I mean, what does it all mean?
What we're left with is this absolutely stunning conclusion. Humanity, through two of its most profound endeavors, objective science and subjective meditation, took completely different roads only to arrive at the summit of the very same mountain. Both paths, in their own way, revealed a universe that is not a machine, but a unified, dynamic, interconnected whole.
Which leaves us with a final, really thought-provoking question from the book's opening chapter. If the path of modern physics leads to the same holistic view of the universe as the path of the mystic, can we then think of science itself as not just a search for knowledge, but also a spiritual path, a path with a heart? And that's the beautiful, profound question at the very core of the Tao of Physics. It suggests that our quest for understanding, whether it's through a particle accelerator or through sitting in meditation, might ultimately be the very same journey, a journey back to ourselves and back to the interconnected whole we are all a part of.